everyone, this is GameBro64 and I am bringing you guys a change in the stats video, and essentially what I want to do is I want to show you as higher as you go in damage, what is the damage that is done to your target done, like is it increase, decrease, or how much of it is an increase. So to start off, let's put the rifle setup. Alright, so this is my main setup at 125 when I have 126 damage with max crit. Essentially I'm going to go in there first round and I'm going to throw a 30% Stormblade and then throw a Stormlord that's enchanted. I am going to crit because I have 100% and I do have 126 damage. I don't care about armor piercing in this setup because he's not going to resist me. It's just a Lost Soul and Unicorn Way. So we just have that kind of particular battle. And then next fight I'm going to simply use more of a damage setup with it's going to be lower crit unfortunately, but it's going to have no armor piercing really, and it's just going to be focusing on damage, and then I'm going to have to see if I can crit on it. So that may take a little bit of RNG just to get the crit off, but hopefully we can get that done relatively fast. And all we're doing real here is just seeing what is the damage change between 126 and 125, or 126 and higher damage. So let me record this real quick. Five, 7, 8, 6. Alright, now let me give you guys some sound too, in case you guys want to hear the sound. Alright, so five, 7, 8, 6. Alright, and then we're gonna do, that's pet, here we go, damage setup 7. Alright, this one has 147 damage. I do have a setup that I saw on my friend's account that was real close to this. It was 148 damage with like max crit. Reason why I can't imitate that is because I don't have everything that he has, but he had like no armor piercing, which was a bummer. He only had like 9 armor piercing or 7 armor piercing and stuff like that, so I'm kind of debating whether going for higher damage is worth dropping my armor piercing. Personally, I don't think so, but I'm just here to test it out, and that's why I'm testing the difference between damage with 126 damage and then damage with 147 damage. So, make sure the decks, the setup are the same. There we go. And we'll try this out and just see what is the difference between the two, and seeing whether or not having more damage is all worth it or not. Oh, and I don't have starting Pip on deck. I'm running the 2 damage deck. So this will take a little while, and as you can see I'm using the crystal wand, so whatever can give me the most damage essentially. And so this may take a little while collecting the pips. Shadow pips, jeez. Alright. Give me a crit, please, so I can see the number. Come on, critical. No critical. Fudge face. 3164. Alright. So essentially you just take that number and double it. That's your critical. So it was 3164, and I'm just going to double it by multiplying by 2, and I get 3628. So let's just take 3628 from the second hit that would have gotten a critical with 146 damage. So that's 6,328. And you're going to subtract it from the difference when you had 126 damage, which was 5,786. Subtract 5,786, and you only get a 542 damage increase. That is from my calculator. I have it on my phone right here, and essentially you can just take, what was it, 6328 minus 5786, and you get a 542 damage increase in damage. And really what you're going up from is 126 damage on your overall setup to 147, and really the damage increase on going up 21 points after 126 is only going, your hit is only going up 542 damage. So you're not gaining a whole lot of damage just by going up on damage. Sure, it may look cool, but let me try it out with more blades. Maybe try it out with, instead of just one blade, one hit, I'll try main set. We'll try 3 blades. We'll try 3 blades and then just see what the damage is like. This is the 126. So we'll try this sucker out again with 3 blades this time and just see if there's a potential difference or anything like that. Because right there, going up 21 damage on your gear is only giving you about a 550 damage increase on your spell. So it's not a whole lot if you're really thinking about it. 21 damage on your gear. Finding 21 damage is pretty hard. That's essentially triple damage on your pet. That's 21. That's 9, 6, and 6. So it's kind of hard to get that damage on your gear when you already have a triple damage pet. So you gotta like think outside the box and rotate gear around. But you're only gaining 550 extra damage. So we'll see what we get. Let's throw this last blade, then I'll throw a Stormlord and we'll record this damage and just see. Critical. Let's record this number. 10494. Alright. And then let's go with damage 7 for 147 damage. And I gotta swap the. There we go. Record it here, 10494. There we go. And let's try this again, shall we? Yeah, 147 damage. Okay. And just see if the more blades you have, maybe there's more of a change. I mean, when we only had 1 blade, it was only like a 500 point difference, 542 difference. So we'll see if that's still the same or equivalent to the same when we have more blades on ourselves, and see if having more damage on your gear is actually worth it. Because I know Storm can get up to like 160, 170, maybe even 180 or 90. I've never really seen the highest stats. Most I've ever seen was like 175 on a Storm Wizard. But that's when your accuracy is almost shot. I mean, you could probably keep max accuracy, max power pip chance, but your armor piercing is total zip. Your critical is like really bad too. It's like 40%, maybe even less, just because you're putting everything you possibly have into damage. So a lot of things suffer. So it's like I'm trying to test and see, after going past like 120 damage, is it worth having more damage or no? Because you have max crit. So let's just see this real quick. And computer, do not lag on me. Five, 7, 3, 9. 5, 7, 3, 9, and then we just double that. So multiply by 2. If it would have crit, so it would have been 11, 4, 7, 8. Alright, so if you take the first number, which was like 10,000 something, I can't remember it off the head and it doesn't show it down here at the bottom, and then you subtract it from the number that we had there. Oh yeah, which was 11,478. If we would have critical, it showed 5K in the video, but you times it by 2. That's essentially your critical there, and you get 11,000. And the difference between 11,000 and 10,000 is relatively almost 1,000 additional damage. So going up 21 points on your gear just to earn almost 1,000 extra damage from our calculations from using a Stormlord with a Stormlord with 3 blades compared to just a Stormlord with 30% blade. If you use a Stormlord with 1 blade and only have 126 damage compared to 127 damage, you get a crit. The minion does not resist you whatsoever. We're just focusing on damage and critical, and what is your damage with a critical and your overall damage on the spell after you crit and the damage goes through. What is your overall damage increase from 126 damage to 147 damage? And essentially you gain about 542 damage increase. Now we test that exact same thing, but with like the exact same card, but with 2 more blades, and just see what the damage increase is from 126 to 147. And we come out with, though it says negative, I've swapped the numbers around, it's about 948 damage increase. And to get this high, you would essentially have to find a way to make this 147, just to earn yourself almost 1,000 extra damage. And I think 3 blades is a pretty accurate thing, because most people hit after having 3 blades. I know you can factor in like feints, and I'm sure the number will probably go from 900 up to like maybe a 2K or 3K, something like that, who knows. You can test it out for yourself, but I think I've tested it out enough that I'm not going up too high in damage. So I think for my 125 setup, I'm going to keep relatively around 126 damage, maybe even try to go up to like 130 if possible, while keeping my max crit. And I'm going to try to focus on keeping accuracy, because from the gear that I've given in the new 125 world and what my friends have told me what's in the new 125 world Imperia, I can tell you for sure you're probably going to end up losing your armor piercing just to keep your max crit and relatively high damage. So it kind of sucks, but I've noticed that though you may not always need armor piercing unless you're cutting through shields or you're cutting through resist and you forgot converts or something like that, armor piercing's still really good to have, especially if we're relying on crit and damage or relatively high damage. Armor piercing is still extremely good to have, because without armor piercing, you're kind of hitting blindly, and I've just, like, we'll test that. We'll definitely test this armor piercing and see whether having high crit, high damage, or the same damage, what is the difference in having like no armor piercing, killing someone with a shield, compared to someone that does have a shield and we have high armor piercing, and what is really the damage increase. So let's go ahead and test that, and that is going to take place at the secret tunnel. Alright, let's do this way. We have multiple hits. Seems pretty good to me. Alright. Let's go in here. We're only doing the first 2 fights just because that mainly drops what you're looking for the boots, and then if you have the hat, which sadly I still don't have the hat, and I've been in here over thousands of times. Just unfortunate. But we will test the sucker out. Let's set up where we're running first off. We are running the 126 setup with 29 armor piercing, and do I have a setup? I do have. I can run this. No, I don't think I want to run that. Yeah, I can use dungeon recall. I believe so. Let me go get a dagger that is the exact same as this, just without the armor piercing, essentially. And we'll just test it with a decrease in 12. Alright, here we go, this one gives crit. We'll take that, because eventually you're going to have to sacrifice your armor piercing for critical if you want to keep your max crit. Alright, so if we put this on, we have 17 from 29, so you're losing 12. So we'll just test it with 17 versus 29 and to see the relative change. 12 damage on that. Can I lose that 12 damage? Yeah, is my alpha omega ring or anything like that? I don't have an alpha omega. I can wear this. Do 124 damage with a 9. And then this gives 23. Still keeping 24. I think we can try that. Well, we already proved that a damage increase from 124 to 128 is not too much. So I think this will be... Where'd it go? There it is. Alright. This looks relatively good. You still got close to 126 with as little to none armor piercing as possible. This is just from the necklace and from the hood. I think you can even like reduce that. Still have, yeah, there's 9. Okay, alright, so 9 is pretty good because if you look at the setup that I was originally going to do, which was be my friend's John setup, he can get up to 148 storm damage, max critical, really close to max power pip chance, about 94%, and then he has max accuracy with like very little resist, only like 20 some resist across the board, and then his shadow pip is about 8%, and then his armor piercing is about 9%. I think it was 7% or 9%, but I think it was 9%. So he lost all his armor piercing just to get higher crit and a whole lot higher damage, 148 damage to be exact, which is really high. Considering if he got the triple damage mount, he could go up to 149, and then for some reason, if he can find just 1 extra damage, he can go up a whole lot higher to 150 damage with max crit, which is really high, but he's given up all his armor piercing, which I really don't want to do because I've kind of grown fond of armor piercing. So we're going to go ahead and test this out. This will be the non-pierce setup. And let's just make a set real quick of this. Is there a shield? Yeah, shield 9. Yeah, 9. Alright, and then we'll just use the one with the 29, or my standard main setup. Alright, and make sure this has good stuff in it. Yeah, okay. Alright, so essentially what we want to do is fight these guys until they drop a thermal shield. Shadow Pip off the back, and I don't even have it in my deck. Unfortunately, we cannot do this in PvP because in PvP they changed the crit to where it doesn't do the full amount of damage. It only does like a fourth of what the damage should actually be. So it's a little hard to do that in that kind of perspective. Oh man. Yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and hit. Don't want him to throw any more shields, I just want him to throw the volcanic shield. But it looks like he doesn't want to do it this fight. Hopefully in the next fight it definitely doesn't. Yeah, you're still seeing I'm doing 57, 38 damage just with one blade. It was a 30% blade. And that's with my 126 armor. Or, no, is this with my 126? No, this is the low pierce. This is the 124 damage setup. And I was still able to hit 5,700 damage on a Stormlord first turn. So, yeah. And I had 126 when we tested it in Unicorn way. Here I am in this fight Testing the exact same thing with 124 damage, 2 less, and I'm still hitting for 5,700 damage with a Stormlord, second turn. And I believe I'm still using a 30% blade. Unless I'm using, yeah, 30% blade, yeah, so same damage. Alright, so hopefully this guy will use his stupid shield for Storm, so I can test it out and see the damage difference for armor piercing. We're going to do one with high armor piercing, one without, or relatively low armor piercing, and just see what is the difference between the damage and pierce. And we're just going to kind of test some ratios and stuff like that, just see, is there a whole lot of damage change between the number of blades you have, the damage you have on your gear. Thank you so much for throwing that shield. Now we can test this bad boy out and just see what is the change. Alright, I can go for crit. This is the non-crit setup. Oh, and I crit. That's nice. Let's see if it lands. And let's record this number down. See, I'm still hit for 57 and I'm at 124 damage. Oh, so he does block me. That's unfortunate. Wow. That was terrible. Alright, so we'll just essentially double that number and be all good. I want to pass so I can build some pips. Alright, so if that would have criticaled, it would have done 2200 with, 2242. So that would have, that's how much it would have done. That's with low armor piercing. Dang, it's a beating. Let's see, 3k, shed. I'll wait one more turn because I have a TC bugs. I did 22 with 9 armor piercing. Dang. That sucks. There we go. He's dead. So that was with 124 damage, 9 armor piercing. Okay, so let's try an increase in armor piercing, relatively same damage. So we're going to go up 20 plus armor piercing and keep 2 more, I guess. I can't get 124. Well, I can take off my narwhal. There we go. Perfect. So let's just log instead of run because I'm too lazy. And we'll run this exact same thing again. Let me grab some health. There's always, let's just put on this. Come on, there's one. I can use that last potion, but look at that, they're all over here. It's like, what the hell? Why are they all over there? Spread them out, KI, for Pete's sakes. I don't want to travel this many miles just to grab one. Or grab 2, because I did grab 2. Alright, let's take off the mount. And that will give us the same damage we had before with 20 more armor piercing. And we'll try this run, and we'll see how it goes. Make sure I have the same deck set up. And then let's put another bug in, because I used one. Alright. Hopefully we can still get someone here to throw 70 Storm Shield. Please be first turn or something. Like, hit me and then throw a 70 shield or something. That would be very nice. There's a 50. I don't want a 50, I want a 70. This stinks that we can't do PvP though, because I mean, it would be so much easier setting up, throwing just a 70 shield with like no pierce, I mean, this is 75, 15 on the aura, 50 on the shield, so 75. But I still want it to be exact, just so you guys can see the relatively different change between each of that. See, I'm still hitting pretty darn good. I mean, with 126, I was only hitting for 5786 or something like that. So I'm hitting, like, with 2 less damage, I'm hitting for like 50 less overall damage. That ain't too shabby. I'll wait another turn. Alright, then I'll hit. If he Frost Giants me, I'll just bug next turn. He does throw indeed, Frost Giant. That's okay. I can wait next turn, just throw a bug. Alright. So we got that number. Now we gotta get the next number. Let's go ahead and type this in the calculator. There we go. Oh, and I end up throwing bug anyway. Haha. Or not bug, but Tempest. It's okay, he's still dead. Alright, so we have that. Life hat. Oh goody, always need more of those. I know 4 of those just isn't enough. I need 5. Alright, so let's just make sure we have the exact same thing. 29 armor piercing. Alright, throw that exact same shield, Madden. Please throw that exact same shield. That's all I'm asking. I don't think this guy really shields so much, so I actually might wait until he just throws a volcanic shield. And next turn you should throw the shield because you are low on pips. What the heck are you doing? Throw the shield. Yes, throw. No, yes, shield, 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 shield. Thank you. Alright, let's test this bad boy out. Alright. Just don't hit me with a stupid genie or something dumb. Thank you. I appreciate that too. Play nice. I don't like arrows. Critical on top of it. Oh, this is gonna tickle. Let me show you mine. Alright, let's see the damage difference between this. Not the crit land. Thank you. 3406. Alright. Alright. Wow, they both lived. They're dead now. Alright, so the difference between the 2242 with the one that had 9 armor piercing and then this one that has 29 armor piercing on a Stormlord is 3406, and so the change between those two is about 1,000, almost like 1,200. About 1,200, give or take. If for some reason there's a rounding error or something like that, who knows. So between 20 armor piercing and using the exact same lineup, using someone that does not resist me whatsoever, having 20 armor piercing, having 9 armor piercing, then 29 armor piercing, using both the exact same spell, criticaling, and doing the damage output and stuff like that. This is the difference between having 9 armor piercing in that fight versus someone that uses a volcanic shield. and then using 29 armor piercing with still using that volcanic shield. So you can definitely see there is a difference between having 9 armor piercing and 20 armor piercing. Now, what does this mean? Essentially, if someone were to use shields against you, it's better to have armor piercing when you have crit and damage rather than having damage and no armor piercing with critical. Alright, and so the more higher the damage you go, you only gain relatively 5 to 900 damage increase. I mean, we saw earlier in the video that if you had like 3 or 4 blades with a Stormlord, you only hit for about 900 more damage than someone that had only like 126 damage with 3 or 4 blades. If you had 147 damage with 3 or 4 blades, you hit harder, but only by a small amount, less than 1,000. Here we're seeing if you have the exact same damage, one setup has higher armor piercing and one setup has lower armor piercing, but the exact same damage, the exact same crit opportunity, and it lands both times, and it's hitting the exact same guy that does not resist you but has like a volcanic shield for 70% on you. What is the damage drop off between having more armor piercing versus less armor piercing? The damage drop off is about 1200 damage. So essentially you can see that it kind of like reveals that armor piercing is a little bit greater than having more damage. Just because you have more damage and less armor piercing doesn't mean you're going to be doing more damage. I think if you have more armor piercing and still having really good damage with critical, you can still have a really good setup going for your wizard, as long as you get the kill, really. But I think how I'm going to do my setup, it's not going to be a big change, but I'm going to try to keep my armor piercing max, and I'm going to try to keep around 126 damage. I may be a little bit more, maybe a little bit less, and that's what sucks about this game. Is sometimes I have to sacrifice my damage just to keep all my other stats pretty much the exact same. So we're going to see how I do my final gear setup for this Storm Wizard at level 125. But for right now, I just is simply showing you guys, is it important to value armor piercing or more damage? And that's what you're going to see when you go to 125 and you still want to keep your max crit, is eventually some people, they're going to rotate to this and they're going to lose a buttload of power pip chance. They may lose 2 damage, but they'll try to find a way to earn that back somehow. They may end up switching their jewels, their pierce jewels, over to crit jewels, just so they can keep, like, they can go for max crit and still keep like high damage or something like that, who knows. And they may sacrifice armor piercing or something like that just to keep higher crit and higher damage. So you just need to kind of mess around with the numbers per se, kind of like how I did, but in all, it's your setup. You get to choose how you really want to run it. I'm just showing you guys the difference between high armor piercing, low armor piercing versus high damage and low damage. Or it's not really low damage, but it's relatively high damage. So just what's the change in damage versus the change in armor piercing, and then the total damage output between both of them. And from this video, I would have to say having more armor piercing looked like it was doing more damage, because there was 1,000, almost 1,200 damage difference between having lower armor piercing versus higher armor piercing. But there's other factors you can take into consideration. If you have low armor piercing, doesn't mean you can't throw shatter during the fight. Doesn't mean you can't throw like TC infallible or something like that. And here it is, and gain the 20 armor piercing you lost off the gear. You can certainly do that. You'll have to give up another turn. If you run with a group, they can throw shatter for you before you go to hit. If you're facing a Storm Wizard, obviously you can use Convert, or if you're facing multiple Storm Wizards, you can use Mass Convert, whichever one you prefer. So just because you have less armor piercing doesn't necessarily mean your setup is bad or wrong. It just means you might have to do a little bit more, whatever the case may be. But I'm trying to get the most universal, best setup that I can possibly think of that is relatively good, and kind of what I'm aiming for. This guy is usually made for quick guide kills, quick round kills, I mean. So like killing bosses in under 4 rounds or less, that's usually what this guy is usually made for. So I like to have some of the best stats, which is max pips, max accuracy so I don't fizzle all my spells unless I have a debuff on me. Then I guess I'll try to overpower it as much damage as I possibly can while maintaining max crit, and then having as much armor piercing as possible in case we go to do a quick guide kill or something like that and the boss throws an unwanted tower at the last second, and we didn't plan properly enough or didn't even think to throw shatter in or something like that, so I just have to kind of power through it. I have that armor piercing just to power through it and still do more damage. So that's essentially how I run my wizard. Otherwise, I'm usually on my death or my life wizard, just supporting, because I'd rather support than hit. That's just something I really like to do, is rather heal and support rather than hit for some reason. But anyways, guys, that's going to pretty much wrap up the video. Hopefully you guys learned something. Hopefully I revealed something to you guys. That armor piercing still holds value even at higher level, and sometimes having more armor piercing, a little bit less damage, and having max crit can do more damage rather than having more damage, less armor piercing, and max crit. So you just kind of value what you gotta just kind of judge what you value most. Do you prefer more damage, less armor piercing? Do you prefer more armor piercing, less damage with max crit? You just gotta test it around and see which one you feel comfortable with. And also it depends on fights. I know if you have more armor piercing, the minions aren't even throwing shields, they don't resist you, but you have less damage, and then someone else who has more damage with more critical, you both have max crit. I don't have to say that. This is what the set's going around, is max crit. Every storm is good with max crit. So if you have more damage versus more armor piercing, and the minions aren't using shields, obviously go more damage. You're going to do more damage. If they're not resisting you, they're not throwing shields, go more damage. That makes like plain as day. You should probably just do that for more damage. But if you don't want to have 4 or 5 different gear setups on your dang character, where you're just filled with gear setups and you carried too much in your backpack or anything like that, I would say losing or keeping like 120 damage is still really good. Of course, you might see someone with 135 damage or 140 damage and you're like, oh, I'm going to support him, or I'm going to choose him over someone with 120 damage. You can still do that, because they do more damage. They'll do like 6, 7, 800 more damage than you, but it doesn't mean necessarily the person with 120 damage is necessarily bad or anything like that. They just prefer, I don't really need 500 additional damage, and I can still keep high armor piercing, high crit, or high stats in other places or something. So you just got to test it around for yourself. Anyways, guys, that's going to wrap up this video. Hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, please leave a like, comment, subscribe, and I will see you guys in another video. I'm going to try to get this 125 setup going. First, I need to get up to 125. I know lately I've been posting setups that are like 120, that my guy's 120, but I say it's for 125. It's essentially because I don't want to level up to 125, but I want to give you guys a really good guide that you can use to when you hit 125 and you're just looking for a really good setup you can use. The level really doesn't matter, because I have in my Discord a bunch of people who test out when you hit 125 you're gonna lose 5% critical. Block, no one really cares about, because everyone focuses critical, so everything is at usually 1%. But I think you're going to lose about 5 block too. You may even lose a little bit more than 5% block, depending on whatever your block is. Mine always shows 1% because I always go max crit. So it's either block or crit, you choose. I usually choose crit just because it gives me more damage. But I usually test everything out. And then Pip Conversion I think will also increase as well. It's at 2% right now, but I believe when I hit 125 the base will be like 230 or something, or 250. So you'll gain more Pip Conversion when you level up as well. But essentially, guys, that's it, and I'll see you guys in another video.